So now what is if someone asks about EC2 instance, why we are using the EC2 instance, we can create an EC2 instance very easily. But what is the purpose of an EC2 instance is to deploy our applications, or if you have any application logic to run that application logic, or for the data processing, or maybe like we can run AI kind of systems, ML kind of backend. In order to run these, we need a lot of computing. Okay, so those for that we have the web server, database server. For this to host also, we may need an instance. Okay, so what is an EC2 instance is? It's a virtual server from AWS cloud. Okay, so and which type of OS is supported? Linux, Windows, and Mac. Okay, so which is not supported is Unix. Then what is AMI? It's a pre-configured OS templates. So we have already the pre-configured OS template. What is the advantage of AMI? Say you don't need to set up multiple times those all like options. You don't need to set up those options. Okay, say you don't need to install multiple times the operating system. So normally, if you want to install Linux or Windows, we need ISO. But in the cloud, you no need of those all the ISO images. You no need to mount them. You no need to install them. Okay. So what is the main advantage is we already have pre-configured OS templates, and those are official from the AWS we can get, or from marketplace we can get, or we can create our own AMIs also. Okay. So what is the advantage with those images are? Those are very safe, up to date, patch levels also we can get it. Okay, it's always safe to use those AMIs. Okay, then what is the meaning of instance types? What is the meaning of instance types? So we are getting different type of OS sizes, sorry, not OS sizes, say different virtual CPUs, different RAM, disk IO, all these we have the different options are available, different hardware families. Say suppose when you are purchasing a laptop, you may choose i3, i5, i7. Like this, we have the different hardware. Here also in the AWS also, they have the different hardware class of families. And you can choose the sizes also, like we have the nano, micro, medium, extra medium. Like this, we have the different types. And it depends upon the client requirement also. The client want more like computing kind of resources, more memory kind of optimized resources, or like you want more data operations, or you want general purpose, you want high performance computing. Depends upon that, we are going to choose the different type of instance types. Then what is security group? What is security group? The security group is nothing but a firewall port or firewall rules we have. Okay, so what is the firewall will do normally? Firewall will filter the traffic. Okay, the firewall will filter the traffic. Okay, then we need to configure those rules by using the security groups. So in this, we are going to use inbound and outbound rules. The inbound and outbound rules we are going to create. So what is the advantage of configuring the inbound and outbound rules is, inbound rule is from outside to that instance, what is the traffic is coming is called as inbound rule. Okay, so from outside to the instance, what is the traffic is coming is called as inbound rule. Okay, from the instance to outside, like maybe to the internet or something, what is the traffic is going is called as outbound rule. We need to define the inbound and outbound rules. We can filter by using the security groups. Okay, the same thing in Azure is called as NSG. NSG is nothing but network security group. In AWS, we are calling as security group. In Azure, we are calling as NSG. Say if someone asks about security group, what you will tell? Someone asks about security group, what you will tell? Security group is nothing but
it control inbound and outbound traffic.
Yeah, it's a firewall rules. That rules we are applying. Security group. Okay. Say now by default for the instance, if it is Linux, we are opening 22 in inbound or outbound. Is it in inbound we are configuring or outbound we are configuring?
It's in inbound.
The inbound. What is the port number for 20 SSH?
22. 22.
22. If it is Mac also mostly 22 itself. For Windows, RDP. Double three,
It's 3389.
3389 is the port number. RDP stands for Remote Desktop Protocol. Remote Desktop Protocol. Okay. Then in Azure, they are supporting only Linux and Windows. They're not supporting Mac is not supported. Mac is not supported and Unix also. AWS also Unix is not supporting. Okay. Then what is VPC? Say even in the AWS also we are creating the VPC, right? What is the concept of VPC? Say in the VPC we are getting our own virtual network we are getting. Okay. So what is going to happen is by default, AWS is providing default VPC for every resource. Okay. AWS is providing a default VPC. For every resource, we are going to get a default VPC. Okay. So what is going to happen with the default VPC means we are getting a public IP and private IP is being provided. So who is going to provide us? By default, when we create the instance, backend, what's happening is we have a default VPC we are getting, but in the production, it's not recommended to use the default VPC. For that, we will create our own custom VPCs we will create. So we will create our own custom VPCs we are going to create. But by default in the AWS, we are getting the default VPCs we are getting. Okay. So then region wise, okay, VPCs are divided into subnets. Okay, so VPC have been logically divided into multiple subnets. Say, can you tell me scope of VPC is? Scope of VPC is region. Okay, so then scope of subnet is zone. Scope of the subnet is zone we have. Okay, so that means if you want to use two zones, then how many subnets we required? Minimum two zones, two subnets we need to create. Okay, how many VPCs are required in that use case?
One.
One
One.
VPC may be enough for one region, one VPC. And another scenario why we'll go for subnets is public and private. So what is the concept of public and private is, if I create a public subnet, okay, the public subnet, if I keep some resources like maybe instances, load balancers, RDS kind of databases, those resources are accessible from internet and those instances or servers also will get internet. So what is the meaning of public subnet? So the public subnet resources are accessible over internet. That means public access is coming and even those servers are getting internet also. Okay. So then what is private subnet? Those resources are not accessible from internet. Those servers are not accessible from internet. Okay. And even for those instances also, we don't get, for those servers also, we don't get internet. For those servers also, we don't get the The internet we are not getting. Okay. So that means, say in normal way, by default in the VPC, I may create 4 subnets. Why I'm creating 4 subnets? Try to understand. I have 2 zones. In 2 zones, on one zone, okay, I'm creating one public subnet and private subnet. In another zone, public subnet and private subnet we are going to create. Okay, so like this, I'm going to create here total 4 subnets I'm creating. In default VPC, what's happening is, in default VPC, by default, we are getting n subnets. That n depends on, any idea? How many subnets by default we are getting? N subnets. That n depends on available zones. What is that meaning is, if my North Virginia having 6 available zones. Okay, 6 available. Then how many subnets I will get?
12.
No. By default, we are getting only one itself, public only. In the default VPC, by default, we are getting, if you have 6 zones, 6 subnets we are getting. Okay, in Mumbai, how many zones we have?
For 6 zones, if you're getting,
No. This is we are creating
yeah,
our custom. But by default, how many subnets we are getting from AWS is, how many zones we have, that many subnets we are getting by default. Okay, if I have 6 zones, then 6 subnets I'm getting. And all subnets by default are public only. All subnets are, yeah, any doubts on this? By default, what's happening is only we are getting, if you have 6 zones, 6, and all are public or private?
all are public. We
All are
got it, sir.
public
No?
itself. Okay,
Yeah.
all are public default. There is no concept of private. In the custom, we are creating like that. Okay, so can you tell me the difference between public subnet and private subnet? What is the
Public,
difference between public subnet and private subnet?
it can be accessible. All the resources can be accessible by the clients, and the server is
But
also having the
publicly over the internet also is accessible, and even those servers also will get the
internet.
internet. Those servers also will get the internet. Whereas private subnet,
It can access the resources without internet, and there is
can
and
you tell me which
server
type of
get
servers you are
the
going to keep in the public subnet, which type of servers you are going to keep in private subnet? Which type of servers you are going to keep in public subnet, and which type of servers you are going to keep in private subnet?
servers can be in the public, and database servers can be private.
Yeah, say suppose here mostly we are going to keep in the public subnet. Try to understand. In the public subnet, we are going to keep web servers. Okay, say even we have the load balancers also we are keeping in the public subnet, and there are some Bastion host. What is Bastion host? I will explain. These called as jump servers also. Okay, and if I go for the private kind of subnet, mostly I'll keep some application servers and backend database servers. And even if you have Active Directory, DNS, DHCP kind of servers, all these maybe some file servers I have. All my data have been in those file servers. So these all the servers I don't want to expose outside. Then all those I'll keep in the private subnet. Okay, so public subnet will keep mostly web servers, load balancers, bastion host, or maybe bastion host itself, jump servers, and even in the AWS we have NAT instances or NAT gateway. What is this also we'll discuss, but those also need to be kept in the public subnet itself. Okay, so that means both we are going to keep in the single VPC. With that, even we are getting security also. We are getting the security also. But why we are discussing this in the instances? By default, when you create with the default VPC, okay, so with the default VPC, what's happening? I'll explain. With the default VPC, our instance is getting to like a public subnet, and that subnet also AWS is deciding. We are not deciding. By default, AWS itself is deciding, or we can choose which subnet you want also. That means I want to be very particular in US East 1B I want. That means 1B zone only I want. Then you need to choose the subnet also. If you don't choose subnet, what is going to happen? If you don't choose the subnet, by default, AWS itself will pick that. Then we are getting one public IP and we are getting one private IP. Okay, who is assigning all these? Our VPC is getting. Okay, then we are getting one public DNS name, then private DNS name also. And when I'm talking about IP address, public IP and private IP, are we getting IPv4 or IPv6 address? Which one by default we are getting?
IPv4.
IPv4 itself we are getting. We are not getting IPv6. IPv4 address we are getting in this. Okay, so by default this is going to happen. Okay, then try to understand here one small point. Public IP. What is the public IP? AWS provided public IP is dynamic. What is the meaning of dynamic is? If you restart or stop your instance, okay, that is going to change. If you restart your instance or if you stop your instance, okay, that is going to change. What is that meaning of that is going to change means? That IP address.
Sir, can we?
Yeah,
Yeah, can't we make the dynamic way, because when they give
yeah.
this public,
If we want, if we want static public IP, then elastic IP is the solution. So what is the solution?
elastic IPs.
Yeah, by default, what is the public IP we are getting from AWS? Okay, is it dynamic IP or static IP?
It's a dynamic IP.
It's a dynamic IP. What is the meaning of dynamic? When it's going to change?
Once the server gets restarted.
When the server stopped or shut down, okay, so restarted, that IP maybe changes.
So, sir, this AWS don't have their DHCP servers so that they can
No, no. Public IP
send
is the public IP is like that is AWS decision. From their list itself, they are assigning. Like internally within the VPC, we'll have DHCP server. Private IPs, DHCP is assigning. Public IPs, AWS, which is available, that is assigning those IPs. And that is very dynamic also, because if you shut down itself, they will assign that IPs to someone. That is AWS is taking care, not in our scope. But if you want any static IPs, then we need to purchase
the static IPs.
elastic IP from the AWS. But if someone asks about elastic IP, can you tell me what is the elastic IP? If someone asks about elastic IP, what is that?
It's a static IP.
It's a static IP. It's a static public IP. It's called as elastic IP. So maybe for my web servers or sometimes I want a static IP address itself. I don't want dynamic. Okay, in that use case, we can purchase the elastic IPs. And how many elastic IPs we can get it is per region we can get 5 IPs. By default, the maximum is per region we can get 5 IPs. Okay, and they will charge money also for that IPs. AWS is going to charge the money for those IP addresses. Okay. Then the next we have is EBS volumes. Say by default, we have two types of storages are there: instance store and EBS volumes we have. What is the difference between EBS volumes and instance store?
EBS volumes are persistence and
Volumes are persistent.
non-persistent.
Store is
No,
non-persistent. What is that meaning of persistent and non-persistent?
it is constant. That means it's permanent. EBS volumes.
EBS volumes, if you shut down or if you restart the instance also, the data is going to be persistent. But if the instance store, the data is going to be restored again. What is the AMI level data we have? Only that data we are getting. But we are losing. We are losing. Our data. Say we have saved some files. All those we are losing. Okay. But even that data also is persistent in EBS volumes. As of now, most of the instances not supporting EBS, instant store. We are choosing EBS volumes itself. And in EBS volumes also, we have GP2, GP3. Okay. Then IO1. So GP2, GP3 comes under. GP2, GP3 comes under general purpose kind of EBS volumes. Okay. General purpose. Okay. This is solid state drivers. That means not local hard disk, those all storing in a storage. Then we have provisioned also. In the provisioned also is SSD type. And in that we have IO1 and IO2. IO2 gives high storage kind of data transactions, more IOPS. Okay, so here more IOPS means input and output per second. More throughput also is going to provide by provision. But what is the challenge with the provisioned is? What is the challenge with the provisioned? It's expensive kind. Provisioned is expensive kind. Okay. And we have one more is that this is not solid state driver. Local hard disk kind of hard disk drivers are magnetic, we can call magnetic storage. Okay, this also little expensive kind itself, but very high performance can be delivered with provisioned and magnetic. For testing environments, for dev environments, to reduce the cost, better to go for general GP2 or GP3 we can use. And for the free tier account, 30 GB of the free tier is going to be delivered. Okay, so now assume we have an instance. In the instance level, okay, so we have assume stopped the instance. Okay, so terminated the instance. So can you tell me the difference between stopped state, what is going to happen, and terminated state, what is going? So that means you shut down your instance or stop it.
When we stop the instance, the EB value will be there within the
EBS volume is still persistent.
yeah.
AWS is going to charge the money for that. AWS is going to
charge money for that.
Okay, so that is the difference. That means if you stop the instance also.
So I'm doing the same thing. Stopping
AWS won't charge the money for CPUs and memory, but they will.
Is it chargeable, sir? If you stop
EBS volumes, they don't charge for CPU and memory.
But we are taking the free time now, sir, here.
No, I'm asking general. The time is calculated, right?
Yeah.
The time you have 700 hours, right?
So that time will be calculated if you are if you stop the instance?
Of that CPU memory level it won't, but EBS level it may charge.
Okay.
That is the reason better to terminate those.
Okay.
Okay, better to terminate those instances whenever we don't want. Okay, and by default, when we terminate the instance, our EBS volume also deleted, but we have an option. Even if I delete my instance also, you can preserve
Data.
our EBS volume, we can keep it. Okay, we can keep our like EBS volume we can keep, but by default, what is the behavior is? By default, what is the behavior?
By default, when you delete the instance, when you terminate the
Volume
instance,
also is getting
value
deleted.
also deleted.
But for critical servers, I recommend don't terminate the
EBC.
EBS volumes. Better to keep that. Okay, for very critical kind of servers, I'm recommending that. Okay, so then here in the most of the companies, what we need to enable for the security is your EC2 instance to EBS volume data also we need to encrypt. By default, we are not getting that encryption, but we need to suggest that encryption also is very, very important for the production kind of. There would be a lot of company compliances for the banking kind of clients, and there are some standards also for that. In order to match that standards, okay, what is the recommended is between the EC2 instance to the EBS volumes also better to encrypt our data. Okay, so it's more secure or not? We need to
Yeah, it is more clear.
encrypt those. Okay, then so we have tax. So tax, what is the purpose of tax is, I hope everyone knows about hashtags, right? Or Twitter, in the Twitter we have tweet, right? So if I give like maybe one like Kohli, okay, say then all Kohli related articles or tweets will get it, right? So what is the advantage of giving the tags is in the AWS environment or in anywhere, we can search or we can filter the resources by using the tags. But in the projects also, some companies having the guidelines, it's mandatory you need to use the appropriate tag for each and every resource. Okay, so that means it's mandatory we need to provide maybe name is one tag or project is one tag. Okay, so which team is that? Like this, better to give the tags. So whenever, say, suppose I have one project, assume for 200 resources, 100 resources are belongs to ITCM or another project is NOL. If I search based on project is ITCM, I can get my 100 resources or not. So what is the advantage here we are getting by using the tags? What is the advantage we are getting by using the tags?
We can search or we can get the resources which
The resources
we
also.
want.
Out of the 200 resources, I can filter those 100 resources or not.
Yeah, we can filter.
We can filter. That is the main advantage of using the tags. Okay, so it's recommended to use the tags also, but it's pure optional kind of thing. Okay, so then like after we choose all these options, even we have advanced options also. What are those advanced options also we'll discuss. Okay, so now I'm going to EC2. The launch the instance. Okay, so now here I'm giving my Linux server. I have chosen the AMI. So now we can choose the AMIs and browse more AMIs. And if you browse more AMIs, we can get on some hundreds of AMIs also we can get here. Okay, so in the marketplace, so these are all the marketplace images, right? We will get some thousands of AMIs also. So how many AMIs are there in the marketplace? Means a lot of providers can keep their AMIs in the AWS, and AWS is the reseller kind of thing. That means AWS, Amazon Web Services is a marketplace. All these are companies are keeping their, all these companies are keeping their AMIs in the AWS marketplace. And if their customers uses that AMI, they will charge the money for that.
How to
Okay. So here try to understand one AMI I will explain in the marketplace. So I'll search for SAP. Okay. So that means this is SUSE Linux Enterprise Server for SAP applications. That means normally this is the job role of SAP basis guy and security guy to configure this. But now that already that image is having already SAP HANA or SAP server is already having with SUSE Linux or with Red Hat it's available. Okay. If I use this image, I need to pay money not only for my instance, I need to pay for the AMI also. So they're charging some money, right? That would be shared among AWS and that AMI provider. Okay. So that is the meaning of marketplace. Or we can get community. Or we can create our own AMIs also we can create. We can create our own AMIs also we can create. Okay. So now I'm going to use Quick Start AMIs itself. And I choose here Amazon Linux. And if I choose Amazon Linux means Amazon Linux 2023 this image. Previously we have Amazon Linux 2, but now they're using 2023. Okay. Then here root device type is EBS, instant store is not supported, virtualization is HVM. Okay. And these are the different boot options, and 64-bit x86 is Intel hardware. Okay, I have chosen the AMI here. Once I choose this AMI, we can choose the instance type. Instance type, I have chosen T2.micro here and key pair. Okay, so coming to the key pair. For security purpose, AWS is not providing key pairs. AWS is not providing the key pairs. Okay, sorry, AWS is not providing passwords. AWS is not providing the passwords. They're providing a key pair. Key pair is a combination of a public key and private key. A public key and a private key we have. And public key, so public key is with instance, and we are getting that private key. We are getting that private key. Okay. So using that private key only, so using the private key only, we can connect to Linux servers. For Windows, what we are doing is by providing that private key, we are getting a password itself. But in for Linux mission, what we are doing? Using the private key itself, we are generating. And encryption wise, we have two different type of encryption algorithms it is using in the backend. Okay, one is RSA base and the second one is ED25519. These are the two different encryption algorithms. But previously we have only uh, RSA only, but now they're supporting ED25519, but ED25519 is not supported for Windows instances. If you have the Windows instance, what we need to choose? RSA itself. And if you come to the file formats, okay, so file formats, we have .pem file and .ppk file. Okay, so 2 years back, 3 years back, they didn't give ppk file. Lot of requests came to AWS to give directly the ppk file itself. So .pem file is used by open SSH kind of communication. In the open SSH, in the Linux, when you want to use PEM file is supported. .pem is an extension which is a private enhanced mail. What is the meaning of PPK is? Putty private key. So PEM is private enhanced mail. PPK is putty private key. Putty private key. Okay. So then why we need to use the PPK is we are using Putty. So Putty is one of the open source SSH client. Putty is open source SSH client to connect from Windows to Linux servers. So in order to connect from Windows to Linux servers, we are going to use Putty. Okay, Putty is not supporting .pem file. So Putty is supporting PPK file. Okay, so PPK stands for Putty private key. Okay, but if you want to connect from Linux, then better to use .pem file itself. But I recommend to download PEM itself and use Putty Gen to convert PEM to PPK file. To convert that into PPK file. And for some days, don't directly use direct connect option. Try to use Putty
Sorry,
itself.
real time, which operating system are frequently used?
Mostly it's Ubuntu or Red Hat.
Okay.
Those are the stable distributions. After that, SUSE may be there. After that, Debian, then CentOS. Like this, it's okay. For Windows, what is going to happen is Windows PPK is also directly not supported. PEM is supported. And if you provide PEM file, AWS will give us password. Using that password, we are going to connect to that Windows instance. The protocol is RDP 3389. Anywhere in the world using the Putty or RDP itself, we are connecting. That's not a new thing. Okay. Any remote mission. But these missions are not in our remote data centers. These are in the AWS data centers we are connecting. Okay. Then here I'm going to create a key pair. Okay. And the scope of the key pair is The scope of the key pair is we have a region. Within a region, we can use same key pair for multiple instances also, but not recommended. For each instance, better to have an individual key pair. But within the region, it's supported to have same key pair for multiple instances also is supported, but that is not recommended. Then here I'm going to create a new key pair. Okay. Then here we have RSA or ED25519. Okay. Then PEM or PPK. And I have a doubt here. AWS is going to store our key pairs. AWS is not going to store our key pairs.
It will not store all key pairs.
That is the reason we need to very securely store your key pairs, and for unauthorized unauthorized persons, never share your key pairs.
Sir, if we,
Persons, never share your key pairs also.
in some situation, if we delete our key pair,
If you forget the key pair, we have some workaround.
yeah, if we delete that key pair unexpectedly.
That's the reason always AWS is recommended to store a key pair in a safe location. Even if you lost the key pair, we have some steps. I will explain that. How to restore our instance, I will explain.
And one more doubt, sir, I have like key pair is giving the password. Oh, fine. While creating the instance, you have selected like, for example, Ubuntu you have selected. In the Ubuntu, like we are having the user as a Ubuntu.
Yeah.
Even we have practiced many times, so we know that when it's a Ubuntu, then the user will be Ubuntu. For Red Hat
Then
or
you need to create your own username. You can create before deleting that.
So we
Before
have that
deleting
option.
that, yes, you can create your own
Okay.
because we have the sudo permissions, right?
Yeah.
You can create your own username and password also, but that's not secure one.
But we have to log in, sir. First we have to log in as
We
a,
are not able to delete, right? With the Ubuntu.
yeah.
For the first time, we need to log in as Ubuntu user itself.
Okay.
Okay?
No, sir. Actually, my question you are not getting it.
Yeah, please tell
See,
me.
yeah, we have practice, so we know. Even though if you have not seen the user, like we can predict that we are using Ubuntu software, so user will be Ubuntu, right?
Yeah.
For example, if we are using Red Hat, in the Red Hat it will be EC2 user.
Yeah.
In CentOS it will be root.
Router sometimes EC2 user also is there.
Yeah, I need to say that. If you get confused at sometimes, why? Because sometimes it will be
That
EC2.
is documented in the AMI.
Okay, that will document it. Okay.
Yeah, that is by default. Say suppose it's in the document. Say suppose in the marketplace AMIs also, that provider may give. Say suppose I shown one SUSE with SAP. That provider will give that user. It's documented in that AMI.
Okay.
From that we are going to get that. Otherwise we can't guess, right, what is the username.
Yeah, that's I'm asking you. Yeah.
That's the
But because
documented nature.
yeah, we have only one chance to see the user while creating the instance. That's it.
Yeah, that's they have created that we need to use. After that, once you connect, you can create your own users.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, if you see that AMI, in that it would be shown somewhere that username. Otherwise, we can't guess, right? All these we got from for Ubuntu AMI. I explained you, but initially we got all this from the documentation itself.
Okay.
In the user manual, somewhere they have given this. Or in that AMI also, if you go through that AMI, somewhere in the description, you can see the username is Ubuntu. Otherwise, when you log in with the root user also, it is telling that username also, they're showing one message. I'll show that also.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so now we are choosing the networking. As of now, we got a VPC, right? Can you tell me what is this VPC? For every region, we are
What
getting VPC. And can you tell me what is this no preference default subnet means?
there
Automatically,
is no,
is choosing one subnet. Okay, so then auto assign public IP means we are getting a public IP or not. If I disable this, I don't get a public IP. If I disable this one, I'm not getting a public IP, I'm not getting. And here we are enabling a security group. In the security group, I'm going to open the traffic. 22 I have opened. SSH is nothing but 22. And what is this? That 0.0.0.0 is okay. So what is that 0.0 is?
allow any IP address.
Any IPv4 address is that representation. Any IPv4 address in the world is can be exposed with that 0.0.0.0/0. Okay, so that means I'm going to open from anywhere. But what SSH we are going to configure is in the real time, don't open for everyone. Even if I know that IP address, if I open also, we have one more security. What is that? We have one more security. What is that we have?
IAM security.
Have the key pair, right?
Uh,
That means that user doesn't have the key pair. But still, it's not recommended to open that from anywhere. What is recommended to give is only allow that user IPs itself. That means ask the developer or who is going to access that instance, ask his public IP, whitelist only for them. Don't allow for don't allow for everyone like this. Means here if I keep this option, here it is showing one warning, right? What is this warning? That is showing one warning. If you see rules with source 0.0.0.0 allow IP address to access your instance, we recommend this to allow only your known IPs. So here try to understood. I give my IP. 183.83 is my broadband has given me this IP. Okay. So now if someone will try to access this instance, even if you have the key pair also, it's accessible only from 183 that IP address only.
at this point, sir, when we are in your office, then only we can access the instance.
Otherwise,
When we,
can't access. Even if
yeah,
my router restarts, sometimes that IP maybe changes also. Okay. Then also, I'm not able to connect. Then definitely I need to whitelist that IP it's also. I'll how to show that I'll share. So now what is that IP? Can you tell me?
which IP we have to give? 000.
What is this IP now? What is my IP here? 183 dot.
83.38.35.
Yeah. So now I'll tell one use case. My IP has been changed. Okay, my IP has been changed to 183.83.38.45. It changed. Then how to whitelist also I'll explain. Otherwise, I also can't connect to that, right? How to
Yeah,
change that I'll explain. Now try to come to here. We have the storage. So how much storage we are getting is 8 GB. For some instances, even 20 GB also. And this is your root volume. And here we have like a GP2, GP3, IO1, IO2, and a cold hard disk, throughput optimized hard disk. For free instance, they're not giving those also. And we have one more magnetic also. But for general purpose and magnetic, we can use 30 GB of free of cost. Okay, and here this is not encrypted. If you want to set up these all the options, you go to advanced settings. In the advanced options, say here you have this volume, right? You can expand this and you can increase the size and delete and termination. What we need to do is, okay, if you keep no, Then what is this setting? Can you tell me? Delete and termination. What is that setting? If I delete my instance also, my EBS volume is not getting terminated. If I delete my instance also, my
Not getting deleted.
yeah, by default the behavior is yes. What is going to happen? If I delete my instance,
The EBS values are running in the backend.
yeah, it's running on the back end. Okay, now here the most of the difference, like what is general purpose, all these like we have are mainly divided with two things. Okay, that is IOPS and throughput. IOPS and throughput. So now, like we need to discuss what is this IOPS. IOPS meaning is input and output per second. How many input and output read and write operations kind of thing. Okay, this is one of the very important performance metric for your server. If it is having more IOPS, your server performance is good. Okay, so it's one of the very critical metric. If you have the frequent accesses, suppose I'll tell one example. You are using maybe Flipkart or Myntra. Flipkart server will access that database or it retrieves that. While retrieving that, more read and write operations are happening on the hard disk level also. Means on the volume level also. If you have more IOPS, then you will get good response. Okay, so then like you will calculate your internet speed, right? How much you will tell 100 Mbps, 300 Mbps, like this we are going to calculate. That is nothing but throughput. Okay, the
That comes under storage optimization, right, sir?
throughput is how much data per second you can transfer. Okay, so by default 125 Mbps. Any doubt on this? In some kind of storages, even 100 GB per second also AWS will support. But if you use that much like a optimized way, we need to pay more money for that. You need to pay more money. Okay, so now here, if I use maybe if I go for IO2, even by default, I'm getting not only this 8,000. Okay, what we are getting is we are getting very like we can increase also more. Okay, that means but more IOPS. What is the challenge? More cost also. Okay, then encryption. By default, the data is encrypted or not encrypted. It's not encrypted. If you want the encryption, here you need to use this encryption and choose any of the managed key. This managed key is AWS is providing. That key has been provided by AWS. Okay, so using this KMS key is going to be encrypted that data. Okay, so that means whenever we have that encryption, our data is secure. Our data is secure, and we have a lot of advanced options here. We'll discuss some of the important advanced options. And now you can join to any of the directory also. By default, even in your Windows machine also, it's part of work group, but you can join to directory, and we have instance profile. These are the IAM I will explain. Then here we have shutdown behavior. Important things I'm explaining. Shutdown behavior. By default, we have stop. If we want only one time that instance, I'll choose terminate. With this shutdown behavior, what is going to happen is, if I stop my instance itself, what is going to happen?
EBS volumes are running at the backend.
instance also is
and
getting.
the CPU's utilization will be.
My behavior is if I stop my instance, what is that? What is my expectation is? I want to terminate also my instance. I want to terminate also. By default, the behavior is it's stopped. That means if you shut down your instance, that's getting stopped. But some requirements I don't want. Okay, so then you can directly terminate. But for production servers, that is very, very risky. Okay, then here we have one more is option, hibernate behavior. So what is the concept of Windows hibernate? So hibernate is a sleep kind of mode. If you shut down the instance, reconnection will take more time. But if the server is in hibernate mode, the connection is very easy. That means we can connect. If you keep the instance in the hibernation mode, some of the resource cost can be reduced. Okay, that means CPU consumption and memory consumption can be reduced. Okay, so when you stop the instance, the data in the memory is going to be, we are going to lose the data. But when we keep in the hibernate, in the RAM, the data is stored. Okay, that is going to be preserved. But sometimes we will keep the servers not getting shut down. We'll keep in hibernate mode. Okay, in the hibernate mode, even the RAM data is going to be persistent. But if it is shut down, the data we are going to lose. For some servers, okay, say it's not recommended to delete maybe Redis, Memcache, this kind of servers, session data may be stored in the RAM. Then I don't shut down that. I'll keep that in the hibernation mode. Okay, then here this is another important termination protection. If I enable this, okay, accidentally, even if I terminate my instance also, that is not getting terminated. Okay, so if I terminate my instance also, what is happening here? If I terminate my instance also, what's happening? My instance is not getting terminated. My is not getting terminated. So now for this instance, I'm enabling this. For the production servers, what I recommend is always enable termination protection. If any new guy or we also accidentally terminated that instance also, that instance is not getting terminated. It's a safe setting. Is it fine? Okay, and some of the production servers is stop also better to enable. That means that may have business connectivity. We may lose that business if we stop the instance also. If we stop the instance also, if we stop the instances, what's going to happen?
We will lose the business connectivity.
We lose the business. That is the reason for critical servers, better to enable protection,
Yeah.
better to enable stop protection also, better to enable. Okay, then here we have one more setting. CloudWatch monitoring. By default, for the EC2 instances, even for like free instances also, AWS is providing basic monitoring they're providing. That means basic metrics they're giving that free of cost. But for production servers, that monitoring information is not enough. Okay, so for that we need to enable detailed monitoring. But if you enable detailed monitoring, okay, what is going to happen is AWS will charge more money for the monitoring also. But for the important servers, it's recommended to enable. It's recommended to enable detailed monitoring. Then we are going to get more metrics also from the AWS CloudWatch. AWS CloudWatch. Okay, then here we have credit specification. Yesterday I said about the credit specification. If I enable this setting, okay, unlimited, can you tell me what is going to happen? It's just like your unlimited credit card kind of thing. Okay, that means if you use T2.micro, the maximum resources are only 1 CPU and 1 GB RAM. But if I use the unlimited credit here, we can use like unlimited resources in the T2 family, but they will charge the money also for that. Okay, they will choose the money also for that. Okay, so what is the risk here? Your instance, if consume more than 1 CPU and 1 GB RAM, it can give more like CPU, more RAM it can assign, but for that duration, AWS will charge the money. Okay, so that is the reason I'm not choosing credit specification. Then we have a placement group. Okay, the placement group, like what is that? In which scenario we'll go for placement group? I will explain. Try to understand. We have an application that has been hosted in one instance. AWS will promise 99.91% of SLA, service level agreement. What is the SLA is promised by AWS is 99.91, but that is not a best practice. It's recommended to keep minimum 2 instances in 2 different zones. With this, what is the SLA promised is 99.99 of SLA. But my client not accepted to keep 2 instances or maybe 20 instances in 2 zones. Okay, he's telling all instances in one zone itself. Okay, so then you can suggest to go for placement group. Can you tell me the use case in which we are going to use the placement group? I suggested to go for multiple available zones for multiple instances, but client not accepted. Maybe his concern is some latency would be there across the zones. That latency also they don't want for that application. Then what is the placement group is? If you have the 2 instances, okay, doesn't goes to same.
It's talking about downtime, sir.
Yeah, same host, same like networking. That means they don't go to the same physical resources. Means physically, you'll have the networking resources like switches, routers, and we have the storage, and we have the host hypervisors. All that not getting shared by the placement group. What is the advantage here? What is the advantage is if one host goes down also, that VM is still persistent. Even that host goes down also, the VM is persistent. So for that purpose, we are going to use the placement groups. In which scenario we are going to use the placement groups?
Regarding downtime,
Yeah, we want to say with the placement group, if we keep instance with the placement group, 99.95 uptime is promised by AWS. 99 point, which is more highly available.
that means in a year, how much will be, sir, the downtime? 99.95 means.
That is 0.05.
That means just for 1 hour in the year.
99, like 99 point, that is we can calculate in the SLO, we can calculate that. So what is that in the SLO? That means objectives of the like service level objectives we have. The 99.95, like maybe if you have the 99.95 is that amount allowed is like within a month, Okay, so it's maybe like around downtime allowed is like how many minutes you'll get for 30 days is 43,200 assume. Okay, then into 0.05 into 0.05.
05.
That comes around 21.6 something
21 minutes, sir, in a month.
in a month.
Here are some results from a search.
Is it fine?
So if you want less downtime, we need just for 5 minutes in a month.
Yes,
At
yes.
that time, we have to pay a lot of amount to them.
It's not only at the AWS level, this is the promises, but our application also may have the downtimes, right?
Okay.
That's also we need to consider. Not only this is at the AWS level.
Okay.
Okay. Here, how I calculated that 0.05, what is that? Is that error budget that is called. From that, we are going to calculate that for into if it is 99.91, that is into 0.01 you can tell.
So this work will be
For
done by us, or it will be done by vendors.
yeah, in the SRE kind of job role, we need to calculate all these also.
Okay.
The SRE kind of job role, we need to calculate all these things also. We need to calculate. Okay.
So you will teach us all this.
So here we have the placement group. What is the advantage is if client not accepted to go for multiple zones in the single zone, two critical servers going to the same host, same storage, same networking is risky because if that hardware failure happens, it's a single point of crash for both the critical servers. Okay, that is the reason better to go for placement group. But in your environment, you tell your instances have been scattered across multiple. Your instances have been scattered across multiple zones.
Multiple zone.
Zones. Okay, if you are using multiple zones, then no need to go for placement group. Okay, then in the purchasing options, we have like spot instances. I'll explain capacity reservations, and that is a new feature. Spot instance also, we can choose it. Okay, then very, very important is user data. Okay, so what is the concept of user data is? It's a launch script kind of thing. So normally in the Windows or Linux, we have the launch script. What is going to happen with the user data is at the time of instance provisioning itself, I want to execute some scripts. Okay, I want to use some commands I want to execute or some kind of scripts I want to execute. Okay, some automation I want to do. Okay, then we have the solution called as user data. So now I want to add a user at the time of, say, suppose you can add a user also at the time of provisioning itself. Okay, that means you can add a user like this also, and you can set a password also at the time of user data. So what is the purpose of user data here? What is the purpose of user data?
To run large scripts.
It's a logon kind of scripts or launch kind of scripts we can use on the user data. Okay, so by using the user data on the Windows and Linux, we can run our own scripts. We can run on that Linux and Windows. We can use our scripts. We can use. Okay, so what is the main advantage is after connecting to the instances, you no need to perform those automation at the time of launching itself. It's going to be performed. Okay, that user data to automate the instance configuration, like it's maybe a software installation, or I want to set up some environment variables before itself, or I want to like maybe some GAS global infrastructure security patches I want to run. Okay, so in that, but by default the user data is going to be executed only for the first time itself. Only for the first time, the data is going to be executed. Okay, we can keep that either in the script we can give or the command level also we can give. What are the use cases is maybe for software installation or logon scripts or environment variables we want to set. Okay, we want to start or stop some services. We want to install some patches. Okay, so for all these purpose we are going to use user data. Okay, so now here I'll run some sample user data, try to, so this instance is, what is that instance? Amazon Linux, right? So I want to install assume Nginx on Amazon Linux. I'm using here ChatGPT that itself will give for the 2000 because 2020, 2023 we are using here, right? Maybe if you run this on Ubuntu, it may not work. Or if you use Amazon Linux 2 also, it may not work. Okay, so according to your requirement, so now these are the scripts. I'll first, before executing this, verify whether those scripts are correct or not. Now here,
Sir, you are installing this without Java, it will be installed.
the Nginx doesn't require Java, right? If it is Tomcat, we may require JDK. Okay, so now this is the bash script, m update is doing, and why we are giving -y is otherwise that script is waiting for a user input, but that is running at the time of launch itself, right? That user input is not possible. Okay, that is the reason I'm installing -y. These options we are using, and it's trying to start also, and firewall D services it is setting up and setting up. I don't want all these assume. Okay, I'm stopping all, I'm removing all these, just sample commands to understand the user data we are using. Okay, I'm just installing that Nginx. I'm starting this Nginx. Okay, that and the user data, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to launch the instance now. I'm going to launch the instance. So now here we have this instance. So now what is my expectation is if I open the security group 80, that Nginx should be running on this mission. For that, we didn't enable the 80, right? I'll go to my security group. In the security, we have that security group. In the inbound rule, so try to understand here. I'll explain one more use case also. I've whitelisted 183. Now, one more developer is asking whitelist his IP also. Then what I'm going to do is for him also, I'm going to give SSH traffic. And I'm going to use here 183 some assume one he shared one IP for me. What is the class 32? I will explain. Okay. Then this IP I'm going to whitelist. 1 second, I'm waiting. That IP we are going to whitelist. It depends upon the requirement. We will be getting this kind of request from the teams. That's maybe internal teams or external clients. For those, we need to whitelist their IPs. If I delete this rule, I also can't connect to that instance. And here I'm adding one more rule to confirm whether that whether that web server has been installed or not. Directly you can open all traffic, but that's not at all secure. Okay, so that all traffic is not at all secure to open, and 80 from anywhere I'm going to open this. SSH is recommended to only from some IPs, but web servers we can access from anywhere. Then I'm adding this rule. Then I'll go to that instance. If my launch template is successful, that user data is successful, what is my expectation? What is my expectation? This public IP should show that Nginx space for me. Yeah, and now this page we got it right, because we still not connected to the instance also, but without connecting to that instance also, that that Nginx has been installed. Yeah, any doubts on this? I hope you understood right, this user data.
Yes, sir, we got it.
Okay, so try to run different automation on top of the user data also. How to troubleshoot all this also, I'll share one more video, go through that also. We have one separate video for user data also, I'll share that. Okay, for Ubuntu, Windows. For Windows, we'll use mostly PowerShell commandlets to install the automation. If you have the hundreds of instances also, user data is very important, useful feature to set up the automation on top of those instances. No need to connect and no need to perform these all. Okay. Then I think I have enabled the accidental termination protection. Then I'll try to terminate that instance. Okay, that failed to terminate that instance. Okay, because that has been.
You have enabled this.
Yeah, so if you want to disable this one, you go to instance settings here. Okay, change the termination protection and you can disable this here. So now, if I try to terminate, still it won't terminate because the stop protection also is there. If you enable stop protection, it won't terminate. I think I didn't enable the stop protection. That is the reason it has been terminated. Okay, so even if you terminate that instance also, it displays sometime here. After some time, that instance will be deleted from this. Okay, now this instance is shutting down, right? Even this event, I'm not in the office, but all of a sudden my instance got shut down, restart. These kind of level of automation also we can do. So can you guess in my absence, who can recognize this instance is getting shut down? Who can get that information? Which service? I'm not there in the office, but my instance got shut down or restarted. Who can identify from AWS? Can you tell me the service name? Okay, that service is CloudWatch. And in the CloudWatch, once this event happens, even we can do some automation. For that, we are going to use some Lambda kind of automation we can use. So I'll tell one example. I have an EC2 instance here. My EC2 instance, automatically it restarts. I don't know what is the reason, but I want to collect those logs. Or someone terminated that instance, but I want to save that logs. Okay, so that's who will recognize in my absence is CloudWatch can identify that event. Okay, and if I configure some notification in the CloudWatch, it can do some automation using the Lambda, and it can store that data in somewhere. You can logs, all that also we can preserve at least. Okay, so this kind of automation also is possible by using the CloudWatch and Lambda. Okay, and by default on the CloudWatch, we are getting basic metrics. Okay, and we can use the detailed metrics also. And in Azure, they have one good feature that is called as scheduling of instances. What is the concept of scheduling of the instances? Is say my bank times are only morning 8 to evening 6 o'clock. I want my server should be running. After that, I want to cut down my cost. Then I'm going to stop. And on the weekends also, I don't have much load. I want to stop my servers. Okay, so that's instead of doing manually, I want to do it scheduling. Okay, so that's by default AWS is not providing. We can do that automation, but Azure is providing very good easiest rate we can schedule. Okay, but as of now, for scheduling, we can do in AWS also, but little complex kind of thing. But in Azure, straightforward, they have given those. Okay, so we'll stop till this. Try to explore. I'll share some more videos also on the user data and some Linux related also. Those all finish for this weekend. Okay, I'll share 3 to 4 videos that try to finish by this weekend.